let's look at tonight's slate. Things are going to be a little bit different in the spreadsheet today because it's a showdown slate, just the one Boston-Toronto game. So I actually made a new tab specifically for showdown slate to kind of give you a lot of the information you might use when you're building a lineup. Try to color code it and hopefully make it as easy as possible for you to find correlation, find lines, find stacks, find skaters that you think would make for good value plays. On this showdown slate, I'll talk a little bit about my thoughts, anything that stands out, and it'll be a slightly shorter video than normal, a little bit different format. So we will start looking at the overview of the slate with our one game, Swayman and Wall in net. Swayman's been great the whole series and the whole season, in fact. So his numbers are in line with kind of what we expect from him at this point going against Toronto. He's been, I think the best word is dominant. And then we have Wall, whose numbers are actually even better based on the one game that he's played with in this series for Toronto. But in the regular season, he started 3 games against Boston, gave up 4 goals in all 3 games, and had a sub-900 save percentage in all 3 games. So if we up Wall's goals against and save percentage to what he did in the regular season against the Bruins, say 4 and 900, that drastically changes how targetable Boston becomes. So the question then that you have to ask is, do we get Joseph Wall that we saw in the regular season 3 times against the Bruins, or do you get the Joseph Wall that played last game? And obviously I have no way of knowing that, but the way you see that or the way you predict that happening is obviously going to have a huge effect on how you build your lineups because it is a showdown slate. Now with these 2 goalies, I think you're going to have one of them. So if you think Boston's going to win, you're going to want to play Swayman somewhere in your lineup. And then if Toronto you think is going to win, play Wall. I think you can also play both goalies in a lineup and hope for a game similar to the last game that these teams just played. That low-scoring game, kind of sloppy. I think Swayman had 16 fantasy points in that game in a loss, and Wall went over 20. That is certainly a possible outcome tonight. One important note is Austin Matthews is still out. So Matthews was out last game, and he'll be out again tonight, which really changes the way that you can approach the Maple Leafs. So salaries are here for the showdown slate. Swayman's 14.4, and Wall is 15K. Now for the new tab here, the showdown tab, I've got the top 3 lines. I didn't make a section for the 4th line. And then I've got the 6 defensemen that look like they're going to be in the lineup. These are from Daily Faceoff based on the morning skate for these 2 teams. So this should be the lineup we see tonight. And then the bottom of each section has which power play line they're on, if they're on one. Color-coded blues is power play line 1, purple's line 2. So you can just see what lines have power play correlation and where. Like, for example, Boston line 2 has even strength and full power play correlation. Some interesting things here is Boston line 3 has JVR, and Justin Brazeau, who I don't know anything about, is going to play tonight, looks like, instead of Danton Heinen. And he's playing on line 3 with JVR, but he also skated with the top power play with JVR on the same line, and then also with Pasta and Zaka here. So I think it's certainly interesting to play JVR and Brazeau, Pasta and Zaka, and then probably you want Swayman as 5 of your 6 skaters, and then a Toronto guy to try to fit in there. I think that's a realistic lineup that I might be looking at tonight. Brazeau's 3K with correlation to JVR and top power play minutes is kind of a glaring target at min salary. To get someone that plays on the top power play with Pasternak is huge. And then I also added time on ice, and for defensemen I added their block. So these stats are all come from the last 5 games they've played, color-coded red to green. And then for the Toronto side, no Matthews means we get a top line of Bertuzzi, Domi, and Marner. I believe that's the same line that played in the last game against Boston. And Domi and Marner have top power play correlation. On the second line, we get Nyes, Tavares, and Nylander, with Tavares and Nylander also playing on that top power play. Nothing really stands out as a great value for Toronto. 9,900 feels like kind of a lot for Max Domi. He is playing on the top line. They are at home, and he does get top power play minutes. It doesn't feel great paying that much for Domi. Not that I'm against it, it just doesn't stand out as an obvious target. Defensemen, they are playing McCabe and Liljegren on the second power play, but again, those salaries don't stand out. I'd much rather go to Brazeau for min price than any of the Toronto value guys. So it's hard for me to give a whole lot of analysis. It's a one-game sample size, so we can't pick and choose, or one-game slate, so we can't pick and choose the best targets based on the data, the stats, and the projections. The way to play showdowns, and I'm sure you guys know this, is to play based on a narrative for the game. So if you think Boston wins a high-scoring game, then you want skaters from both sides. If you think Boston wins a close game, then you probably want Swayman, maybe even in the captain, or definitely on your lineup, maybe captain, maybe flex, with maybe 4 Boston, Swayman, and then a Toronto guys, or 3 Boston, Swayman, and 2 Toronto guys. But if you think Boston's going to win, you play more Boston. Same idea. If you think Toronto's going to win, play more Toronto. Now, if I think Toronto's going to win, I'm going to try to get Domi and Marner in as a starter because they play top line, they're at home, and they have power play correlation. And if I think Boston wins, I'm either going to go with this line 2 as my starting point for their correlation, or I'm going to go with some combination of Zacha and Pasta, or all 4 of Zacha, Pasta, JVR, and Brazeau. And that's kind of the 3 ways that stand out to me. The Toronto 1, thinking Toronto wins. The Boston 2, thinking Boston wins. And the Boston power play 1 with Boston winning. And I think the 4th on my list would be building around both goalies, assuming a low-scoring game. In that case, pick the goalie you think is going to win, captain them, play the other goalie in flex, and then see what kind of salary you have to build a correlated line with whatever goalie you have winning. So if you think Toronto's going to win, captain Wall, play Swayman in the flex, and then play a Toronto stack in the flex too. All right, that'll do it for tonight's slate. A showdown slate. We'll see how it goes. Not a huge fan of showdown lineups, but hey, if I hit something tonight, my opinion could drastically change. Good luck, everybody.